Hello everyone. So today is our first session about anthropology answer writing approach discussion. So we'll be discussing the answer writing approach for day 1, day 2, day 3 questions that have been uploading since last 3 days. So all right guys, so before we start to see the approaches for those questions, let me take couple of minutes to explain how to approach different types of question. Okay, so let me briefly take you to that part. So there will be few types of question. One is 10 marker, which everyone knows. Okay, in 10 markers the focus is on breadth, and on 20 markers and 15 markers the focus is on depth. So this is the basic rule. And third thing is open questions, focus is on clarity. So this is the bottom line guys. For 10 markers you need to write as much as possible. For 15 to 20 markers you need to explain and show your understanding of concepts in depth. And for open questions you need to use the anthropological knowledge that you have with clear expression. So these are the only 3 basic things which we should be keeping in mind going ahead with the answer writing approaches. All right, so let me directly take you to the day 1's questions. Okay, what is the first question? Write a note on the relationship between linguistics and sociocultural anthropology. All right, so what would be the initial approach when the question is seen? It is relationship between linguistic and sociocultural anthropology. So the general approach would have been to write an intro, the contextual intro that linguistic anthropology and sociocultural anthropology are closely related fields which have interlinkages, sometimes overlaps, and sometimes you can sometimes use definitions as well. And after that what we will be doing, we will be writing the points for the given dimension, linkage between linguistics and sociocultural anthropology. So I'll be writing few points and thereafter we'll be writing relevance and concluding. So this is what is most of the students in their initial stages will try to write. So this is what I used to write in my initial stages. But then what happened, I realized that yes, this tries to cover good number of points, but what happens if I don't get to write or if I don't get to remember some things in these parts, I'll start to choke in the exam. So that will get set a bad impression on my answer. So that's how, and that's why I devised a method where I'll be addressing the demand of the question, the core demand, while also ensuring that I'm expressing my range and breadth in that particular question. So how? That will not only give the quantity that is required for the answer, but it will also ensure that your quality is adequately padded up with the other dimensions, which will give your answer an holistic sense. So that way the evaluator will understand that you have actually studied anthropology thoroughly. Okay, so what change I made? This is the change between the 250, 240, 250 and 300 marks. All right, so this is the only change that I made, not too much of value addition. So introduction I used to write using one scholar. I'm trying to use Franz Boas because both of the branches are one of the couple of the 2 main branches of the 4 major fields. So in body I'm adding another dimensions. I'm simply writing how linguistics and sociocultural anthropology are linked. They are linked by social linguistic, ethno-linguistic and primate symbolism. And linguistic in sociocultural anthropology, how linguistics helps in understanding sociocultural anthropology. That is one dimension. Instead of writing one dimension, I'm splitting into 2 dimensions: linguistics in understanding sociocultural anthropology and sociocultural anthropology in understanding linguistics. So I'm making it bit more structured. Okay, and after that I'm writing the relevance, and then I'm concluding with the in-depth or some giving some sum up or broader idea. So that's how I was able to generate how many dimensions? Dimension 1, dimension 2, dimension 3, dimension 4, dimension 5, dimension 6. So imagine when you have 6 dimensions, even if you're writing 2 or 3 points here and 2 points here, you are generating nearly 18 points. So do you think that when you have the capacity to write 18 points that you will fall short of writing points? No, this will give you confidence. And when you have such framework, you will realize that you can seamlessly write 2 pages in abundance of points. Okay, and when it comes to 15 markers, you will never choke. So this is the approach that changed my score. So I have written the answer for the same question as a demonstration. Okay, and I won't be writing answers for all the questions here on. This is only since it is the first question that I am discussing. I also preferred to write so that you should understand how I have actually translated this framework into an actual answer. So for that purpose, I have written the answer itself. See what I tried to do. Linguistics and sociocultural anthropology are two major subfields as per French Boas that are closely linked. So this is the simple contextual intro. And then I try to use the diagram, how they are linked in a illustrative way. Social linguistics, primate behavior, and ethnolinguistics. Okay. Linguistics in understanding sociocultural anthropology. See, here we need to bring the anthropological language. It's not that simply language helps you to understand culture, language helps you to see this, language helps you to this. That is very, those kind of phrasing comes from usually those who have not understood things well. So the phrasing should be based on anthropological concepts. So what concepts we have? Acculturation, we have linguistic relativism and linguistic determinism, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and we have symbols, because language is related to symbols. So just if you imagine, if you are like in ethics, if you remember the syllabus and the keywords, you can use them in the cultural questions, sociocultural questions. Okay, try to make a keywords of sociocultural anthropology in one page, just keywords, the theory names and the concepts names. Okay, you will get hardly some 60 keywords. You can simply use them. Okay, see how I try to use symbols, Victor Turner, social identity, social mobility, social adaptations. Okay, you can go through the answer later on, but I'm simply showing you how we can bring and make the answer look more anthropological. And sociocultural anthropology and understanding linguistics, status, how social status and language influence language, right? The terms of reference, we call elders with respect, and we call youngers without that g, aoji, baitiye, aiye, baitiye, kutkoli, kutko, right? So that's how we address. And I have tried to integrate the syllabus, right? Field work, syllabus gives me the points. Field work, how in field work will language and sociocultural anthropology are linked? Field work is understanding language, why some cultures are specific terms, right? We have seen that the Hopi Indians, they don't have sense of time. So that is what is discussed in cognitive theory of Harold Conklin. So I simply try to use that, how these things are interlinked, and I have used the concepts, keywords. You need to explain it in a brief phrase. Okay, I just try to use them as an illustration. Social and cultural context aids in understanding language. This is very generic point which we should try to avoid. Historical studies to reconstruct the languages of past. So this is how sociocultural anthropology is related to linguistics. And I have a relevance. Okay, this is my other dimension. So I am writing like indigenous language gets preserved if we understand the linkage, and solving language driven regionalism and social inclusion, right? Because language is not just something which we use as a medium of communication. Okay, it is something which embeds every aspect of human life. Okay, so that is the importance of language. And I have tried to integrate the technology element. Digitization will help in preservation, and this is the unique point that I tried to bring. See, you know that, right? The socialization and the basic schools, mother tongue is the key. So when we understand the nuance of it, we'll be able to simply integrate it. This is the basic thing which the NEP talks about. You can simply write this: understanding of linguistic and sociocultural anthropology enables us to design curriculum based on the needs and demands of the culture specific region. Okay, that's how I try to integrate the basic point. And then we need to conclude with some strong quotes or something which is very nuance in its understanding. So since I had it prepared, because I was prepared for such questions which were about the linkage between language and culture, so I had this conclusion ready, which the scholars Krober used to say, culture started when speech was present, and from the beginning, enrichment of either one led to development of the other. So by this strong remark by a scholar like Krober will give your answer a, a hint of depth. Okay, a hint of, impression will be created in the evaluator's mind. So that's how I try to write this answer. So try to see it once. The PDF will be made available to you. So that's about the first question. So what we did there, we tried to address the demand while creating the dimensions which will allow us to cover more points. And the third thing is the enrichment. The green parts, wherever you see the green parts, they are actually enrichments. That's how your answers start to look unique to you. Okay. Elucidate the scope and relevance of archaeological anthropology. So archaeological anthropology, it is about any specific branch. The question can come from any specific branch. So they can ask scope and relevance of sociocultural anthropology, or say biological anthropology, or archaeological anthropology, or linguistic anthropology. So we have a general template here. So usual approach, what it used to be, define the archaeological anthropology and then write and list down the scope of archaeological anthropology and then write relevance. So we could see that we have 4 dimensions. But like I said, if we are able to identify 1 or 2 extra dimensions, we'll be able to write answers very seamlessly, very simple. Okay. So same thing, the definition will be there, but I tried to integrate one more thing, one more dimension, the background. When did the discipline start? A couple of lines will give you breathing space where you can easily accommodate, and without having to recollect every specific point about this particular topic, you can complete your answer. Okay. So you can write 2 lines about it, and simple diagram representation makes your answer a bit, engaging. And scope of anthropology, archaeological anthropology, yes, those points will come now, and relevance of archaeological anthropology will come now. And we have the edge, recent developments. So whenever the question is about any theory, any field, or any method, or any domain where there is active research, you can always use the recent developments as a safe, unique element for your own answers. Okay. So I tried to create a rough answer for this, just to illustrate you, to convert this framework into answer. So definition, mentioning the, again, 4 main branches using Franz Boas, and background, when it began and how it began, and historic, and I tried to create diagram of major subfields. And in scope you can make this more structured. Okay, instead of listing simply scope as archaeological anthropology helps us to understand this, it studies that, it studies this, we can make subheads based on 4 subfields. Okay, how archaeological anthropology helps us to understand sociocultural anthropology, how archaeological anthropology helps in understanding biological anthropological parts like evolution and all, because ethnoarchaeology is related to that part, social cultural anthropology. And how archaeological anthropology helps us to understand linguistic part of anthropology. Okay, that's how your answer will become more structured, and you can generate more sub points in these sub dimensions. Okay. And relevance, you will write it, and recent development, what I tried to integrate, because I had it in my notes ready, because that's how I tried to add that unique element. So there were a couple of fields where, the archaeological anthropology was developing itself, the phylogenetic linguistics and digital linguistics. So that's how I tried to bring that unique element. So this, I can use this to say that the scope is widening and the field is evolving. And in conclusion, always remember, whenever anthropology asks about any subfield, you try to use it as a part of the holistic part. So that's the basic element I used to write, or you can use by concluding through quotes by some archaeological anthropologists. I had a quote by H.D. Sankalia and I use it. I won't be giving you the quote, because the moment I give all those things, everyone of you will be watching it, and everyone will try to write the same quote and same answer, and no one will have the relative advantage. Okay, try to work out these things on your own. I'm only giving you the skeleton. The moment I give you the flesh, you stop working. Okay, so try to fill the flesh for yourself. I'll give you the skeleton. So how do you situate anthropology with the social sciences? Okay, I'll be giving you the answer as well only in the analytical questions, not in the questions which are direct and theoretical, because everyone knows the content. There should be no difficulty in writing the content that you know. Anyhow, I am giving the dimensions. So how do you situate anthropology within the social sciences? This is the third question. Again, we have it for 10 markers. We know that what the general approach used to be: define the anthropology, or define or give introduction in context of anthropology and how it is related to social science, and then try to list out how anthropology is related to social science. This is very basic approach which any beginner answer writer or anyone who has not read or who has not made a structured notes would write. So this would be the basic approach. Sorry, I didn't write conclusion here. Okay, but how the strategic approach will be? Strategic approach will be, it will define anthropology while underscoring the scope and its interconnectedness with the other branches. Because what is anthropology at the end of the day? It is holistic study of man. So everything is just to it. So I am again trying to create a dimension by using diagram, the Sun diagram for subfields, and then I am discussing the co-demand relation between anthropology and social science. Here I am doing it again in structured manner. Okay, I am not simply listing out points. I am dealing one part of social science with one part of anthropology, sociocultural anthropology and its relation with sociology, and its relation with economy and polity and history, and sometimes applied anthropology. And in each sub part, I am discussing 3 points: the scope, the subject matter, and the method. With respect to these 3 points, I'll be discussing one subhead. Okay, so in here you can see I can easily get there's 12 points. So, and after that, most important thing is what he's asking: how do you situate? He's asking for your evaluation as well. So I am discussing the critical aspect as well. However, anthropology and science are also close. So I'll write some brief about it. Anthropology is not totally social science. Okay, it is also close to, and it also has proximity to natural sciences. So I am addressing that part, and then I am taking a balanced view. How balanced view? It is neither a science nor a natural science or nor a social science. What it is somewhere in between that. So that is how I try to use this diagram. I have it in my notes, which is uploaded on my Telegram channel. You can just take a look at it. And I'm again using Krober's statement. There is a Krober statement about anthropology and its relationship with sociology. I think he says it has a sister disciplines. Okay, and by conclusion, I'm again using the holistic aspect. Since anthropology is very holistic, anything under sun is just to the mill of anthropology. So this is the quote phrase that I'm using to conclude, and this conclusion gives a strong closing to your answer, and that creates an impression in the mind of the evaluator, and you are going to fetch a better mark. So imagine if you are writing answer in general approach, you may be fetching good marks. Good marks here means 4 to 5, 4.5 to 5, because you are at least addressing the basic demands. But if you want to score competitive marks, if you want to score more than 240, this should be the approach. This will bring you at best 240. Okay, 230 to 240. But if you are doing these parts, you are going to breach that 270 mark. Okay. So the fourth question, what is classical evolutionism? Discuss the contributions of E.B. Taylor to the history of anthropological thought. So what would be the general approach? Define classical evolutionism and write its key tenets and major schools, and list out the contributions, and then criticisms, and then conclusion. Yes, this is general template which everyone knows. Even the most beginner in this anthropological study will be writing these many dimensions. But what extra you can bring? That's what we need to think, right? That's why I call it a strategic approach. So what I can do is I integrated one more thing: background. Whenever there is a question on theory, always integrate this part. Okay, you can write 2 lines about background, when it start and which phase of anthropological development it belonged to. Because in T.K. Penniman, 100 years of anthropology, you can see there are 4 phases. So classical evolution belongs to one of the phases, right? You can simply write it. And same things: key tenets, major schools, and contributions, whatever is there. And again, I am adding one more element which is unique to me: link to future schools. Okay, so any thought is not developed in isolation. Every thought has some stimulation. So generally what happens, we see that this theory is separate, that theory is separate. No, one theory is somehow being stimulated by the old thought. Whenever the old thought has some other deficiency, that will give rise to a new idea. So that's how human brain works. So you can always use this, whichever theory be it. So this is general template for all kinds of theory. You can link the theory to future schools. There will be certain linkage no matter which theory. Okay, and we can conclude it by recognizing the efforts that this thought, I mean this school, the cultural revolution, gave to the discipline of anthropology. So never conclude by highlighting the criticism. Always you must recognize the effort being given by that school, because anthropology as a discipline did not stand up like a mountain or in a single day or a year. It gradually developed and evolved as new scholars, new intellectuals started to come up with new ideas, new thoughts, new frameworks, new concepts, new theories. So everyone has contributed their bit to understand ourselves in a holistic sense. So that's why we must always conclude with such kind of recognition. You can use some standard phrasing. You can ask GPT to, you can make use of Chat GPT or any other AI tool to create some phrase to recognize the contributions of some scholars. Okay, you can simply replace the name of the scholar. So I'm telling you, you need to go and work on this. I'm not going to, because I have a one sentence or a two sentence, one statement and two statement for concluding these kind of answers. But you need to go and work. I have given you the hint. And we have the last question for day one, anthropology. So this is the analytical question that we come across in unit one. Anthropology is a systematic, objective, and holistic study of humankind across all times and all places. Elaborate. So it's very open, right? So when it is open, you must first understand the question in its depth, and then you need to break it. And once you break it, try to write your answer in a holistic manner while acknowledging the basic core demand and analyzing it in a critical or anthropological perspective. So that's how I tried to solve this. So what would be the general approach? We'll define anthropology first, and we'll write, since the three parts are outrightly there, anthropology is systematic, anthropology is objective, anthropological holistic. So I'll be writing few points under that, and then I'll be concluding. So this will be the very basic approach which anyone could write. So what is the approach which those who are scoring will tend to use? Okay, they'll also define, but they will write a diagram here, a body. Because what is anthropology at the name? We are hallmarks. What are the hallmarks of anthropology? It is systematic, it's holistic, it's objective, cultural relativism, comparative science, right? These are the hallmarks of anthropology, and participative observation. And these are some of them. So you can simply write, all right, hallmarks are key tenets of, or key features or key characteristics of anthropology. You can simply rewrite them. And coming to the direct core demand, we are writing that, but here you need to again use the syllabus. Okay, see, fieldwork, theories, and biological anthropology. I'm using the syllabus, 3 fields. Okay, in fieldwork, how anthropology is systemic? Because in fieldwork we have techniques, methods which are scientific, right? And in theories are, what are theories? Theories actually gave a systematic framework to understand the social institutions and the social behavior. All right, otherwise if we are looking at the social institutions and behavior without any lens, that will be very subjective, because I might look at something as something else and something other as something else. But if we are looking at it from a functional perspective, we can always see that marriage will serve a function. But if we don't have such frameworks, we will see marriage as something. Someone can see marriage as living together of two people. Someone can see marriage as a union of male and female. Someone can see marriage of bonding for livelihood, or someone can see marriage as a bonding for next generation or procreation. But when you see it from functional perspective, all things come together. Okay, that's how it tries to make discipline systematic. And historical particularism, it made anthropology and put it on scientific footing. Okay, because it is the first time that it started to collect and emphasize on cultural relativism and collecting data directly and participative observation, which was developed by Milanowski later on. Okay, and biological anthropology, you know it, how systematic it is, and how it is objective. Relative cultural relativism, and in biological archaeology, it is objective, right? The gene studies are objective. anthropology is holistic. Link all fields, time and space. See, you know it. What is holistic? You can simply write few points over there. And now, see, yes, anthropology is systematic, holistic, and objective. But there are also criticism, right? No one says that anthropology is totally science, because the framework itself, the social part of human itself, is a subjective part. So we can never say that they are completely 100% fulfilling those three uh, characteristics. Okay, so that's why I came up with the other side, the critics. Objectivity. The postmodernists say there is no objective truth. So I'm integrating theory here. I'm integrating anthropology to so anthropological theories in this part as well. And ethnocentrism, we know that it goes against objectivity and system objectivity and Western bias in studies. All right, because whenever there is bias, the outcomes are not objective. And systemic, sometimes systematic. Why it is not systematic? Initially, it was not systematic before the classical evolutionism, and during classical evolutionism also, they mostly relied on secondary source of data, and now it has become systematic. That's why that's what I tried to highlight here. And this is the edge point that I'll get. You need to write it under this head: analytical view, or anthropological perspective, or analytical perspective, or such heads which will, where you will write the crux of it. Okay, so what I'm writing, it has evolved from non-scientific, non-objective, and non-holistic to scientific, objective, and holistic discipline. You can use it and rephrase it. Okay, I have given you the idea what this should contain. This is not the exact statement that you are expected to use. You should go and get it rephrased in a more appealing manner. And conclusion, I'm highlighting the growth of anthropology. See, anthropology, I'm using this sum up as conclusion. Anthropology has grown from non-scientific. It was non-scientific, right? It was based on racism initially, and it was based on a lot of assumptions, and it was non-objective. You know that secondary source of data, so it cannot be objective. And it was non-holistic because initially it did not concentrate on lot of other fields. It mostly focused on physical part, not biology. So that's why the physical anthropology become biological anthropology later. So since this is how the anthropology as a field developed, I tried to use it as a strong conclusion from science of discrimination, because that was the tag which was given for anthropology in its initial decades, to science of humanity. So see the depth of the conclusion. It began somewhere at a very nascent stage, which was not well accepted, and now it is standing at a position where it is commanding to understand humanity. So that's how I tried to create a strong conclusion. So that's up for your day one answers, guys. Let me go to day two. Okay. So what is the first question that we have? Human evolution has cultural dimension. So this is the question which looks very open. This is the question that is asking you to express about the biocultural evolution of human. Okay. So what would be the general approach? Write a generic intro. What is evolution, or how cultural dimension is involved in evolution? That would be the general introduction. And in body, what you will do? The direct demand, cultural dimension of human evolution, and we'll list out the points, and then we'll write the relevance of this particular aspect, and then conclusion. So we have 4 dimensions. But if we let me zoom out a bit. Okay, so if we want to write more dimensions and enrich it, we need to integrate the same elements that we spoke in the day one sessions. Okay, so I'll be directly hitting the concept, what it is talking about biocultural evolution. So that keyword will be there in my introduction. Okay, I'll be using a diagram. Human evolution includes 2 aspects: biological and cultural factors. Okay, and I'm very briefly giving some space for the biological factors in human evolution. So this is not directly asked, but that is what is implicit demand. We need to spend very little space and close it up within 30 to 35% of our first page. And the cultural dimensions, the main part. Okay, here you need to write all the required points, and I'll show you how to interlink the concepts here. You can link the fossils here. Okay, in cultural dimensions, what happens? We'll speak about how fire led to change in our dentition, because fire led to softer foods and softer foods led to change in dentition. That's how culture affected human evolution. But we know that the fire has been in the use only after erectus. So we know that all we need to do is simply integrate Homo erectus or Homo sapiens or Homo neanderthals whenever, wherever, whichever point is it is required. Okay, that's how we need to develop that interlinkage. And about this balanced or analytical perspective, both work in synergy. That's what we need to show. Evolution doesn't happen in silos. It neither alone happens in through biology nor through culture. It happens with interplay. Okay, culture influences biology, biology influences culture, and again culture influences biology. So that's how the culture and biology interplays to evolve humans. And relevance, try to include the contemporary parts. So even in modern day, we know that, right? Our modern day cultural things are influencing human evolution. For instance, the genetic engineering. All right, we can imagine, right? By genetic engineering, we can design the babies. So those things can affect human evolution. And technology, there is this research going on where some of the uh, cohorts have been tested. They found that those who are very addicted to screen, there is a tendency that their eyes are this part is somewhere coming up. So that is how you need to link the studies from the current affairs. And I am concluding it with the basic or strong conclusion, which I have it. I'll show it. So cultural factors, I just tried to add it here, and we can add value addition in the relevance. Like I said, modern day factors, genetic engineering, I tried to use it. Genetic engineering could transform evolutionary trend in humans. Okay, and introduction, rather than a generic introduction, I tried to hit the bullseye. Biocultural evolution, that's what I tried to use. So I have a wait, yes, biocultural evolution. Juryman, there was a definition given by Juryman about the biocultural evolution. So this is the definition, you can just go through. And I have a strong conclusion. Journey from hominoid to hominid is due to complex interplay of biology and culture. So see how depth I'm trying to phrase the conclusion, rather than simply saying that human evolution is outcome of interplay of biology and culture. No, I'm bringing some nuance there. Humanoid to hominid, the journey from hominoid to hominid. So this give a sense of realistic perspective on our understanding, our clarity of understanding. And you can see, as an evaluator, if you are looking at this point, I think more or less you will be impressed. And you can use this diagram, okay, right after introduction, because culture influences biology and biology enables culture, and that's how we evolve. So this is a simple diagram that I tried to develop. And I have this flow, so you can take a look later on. And we have the second question, write a note on mosaic evolution. Yes, there is a general syllabus topic where you have some concepts of evolution. You can use the same template for all the concepts like adaptive radiation, Dole's rule, Cope's rule, etc. What the general approach would be, define that concept and explain it and give some examples and link it to human evolution and then conclude. So this is the general approach. But you will find that with this approach, you will not be able to write adequately with not enough quantity. So that's why I created another dimension here. You are explaining what is evolution and the scholar associated with it, and you are explaining the concept and giving examples and evidence to as a proof of the concept, and then key features of the concepts. And then this has a separate head. Any concept should be viewed in respect to human evolution, because the genetic and evolution concepts that we are studying, we are interested to understand human evolutions. So that's why we need to create it as a separate head that will give you scope to write 2 or 3 points, as well as the examiner the clear picture, right? The examiner will understand that you are rating this concept in context not simply as a theory. So I have a diagram, I mean a plot here, where the development of human, the evolution of cranial capacity and the evolution of bipedalism are diverse. Okay, so I'm writing significance of mosaic, this concept in anthropological studies. In evolutionary studies this will be helpful, right? So you can simply write 1 or 2 points, that's how. By this we will have how many dimensions? 1 2 3, and this is 4 5 6. So simply we can write 12 14 points. Okay, so that's how we need to bring down. So this is the diagram that I was speaking about, plot. So this upper part, it shows evolution of bipedalism. So this is the point where we fully efficient bipedals, and this is the plot where it is showing the evolution of human cranial capacity. So both are not in tandem. So that is what the concept of mosaicism speaks about. Okay, so now we have the gradualism and punctuated equilibrium. So this is one of the foundational debate in the mode of and tempo of evolution, because some feel that evolution happens in a linear fashion, day by day, step by step, and some feel that evolution happens in a punctuated points, so it happens suddenly, right? Like magic, and then for centuries nothing happens and again something happens. So that is what is punctuated equilibrium. So the approach for is simple. The general approach is here. There will be an introduction, the different we are breaking this into two parts: gradualism concept, its evidence and example, like the same concept here. In the mosaicism, what we used: concept, evidence, example, and its critic. So same part here, and conclusion. And here also more or less same, but only thing is I'm adding this extra dimension, anthropological view, and I'm bringing in gradualism, punctuation in human evolution, and I'm trying to give out a balanced view. What is balanced view? Because balanced view is what evolution can happen in both manners. Sometimes it can go in a phased manner, sometimes there can be a sudden change. We know that, right? Bottlenecks etc will create a sudden change. So that's how it is. That's what I've tried to bring. So I'll be adding an extra dimension, and I'll be scoring half or 1 mark extra. So that's what the difference will make, difference between 250 or a 300. What is organic evolution? Describe the major theories of organic evolution. What is the general approach? We'll define the what is organic evolution, and then we'll explain the organic evolution, and we'll write the theories in point. And then what we'll do, we'll conclude. But what I am trying to do is add that extra dimension background, and then I'm trying to write these theories in a very structured manner, unlike in a single paragraph. Because we see we are writing 2 3 lines without a clear structure won't make so much sense. But if I'm writing who discovered it, what is the theory, and what is the critic, and any diagram if at all associated with it. Okay, so if I'm making 3 to 4 points structured for each sub theory, my answer starts to look more organized. More clarity emerges from my answer booklet whenever the evaluators look at it. And I'm adding that additional perspective, analytical perspective, which I tend to use. What is the analytical perspective? You should use the significance of any given concept for understanding human as a analytical take. What is it? It culminated into synthetic theory, and I try to use the diagram. Okay, this is what is organic evolution, which including this emerging this new concept that emerged later on, we came up with the synthetic theory. So that I try to use, and conclusion we can make use. Okay, you can create your own conclusion for such questions. Discuss the basic assumptions of classical evolutionism. Are these assumptions valid today? So again, when it comes to theory, like I said, we need to use all those heads which we use in our first question, the classical evolution question in our day one discussion. So general approach. What is the general approach? Define what is classical evolution, what are basic assumptions, and examine whether they are valid today, and then conclude. So you have that 4 minimum basic dimensions. But to make it easy to write for such questions without getting choked here, because we have very objective points here. Basic assumptions, there are no 100 assumptions or 10 assumptions. We have 3 or 4 assumptions. Okay, and examining their validity won't take too much of space, or you won't have too much of points. So that's where we need to bring up that padding. okay, which should be relevant. Okay, it's like whenever you're adding anything that should make sense to the question. Simply adding under something, some head or some irrelevant head doesn't make sense. That instead gives a bad impression that you are trying to fill out the page. Okay, definition, and I'm writing the same thing as intro, but I'm again including the background. Yes, I can write a line about it, and writing a line about background won't be irrelevant. But if you're writing 3 or 4 lines, that starts to become irrelevant in this context. Okay, you need to use the dimensions very wisely. Whenever it is not directly related, all you can do is add the dimension as one point, create the head, and just write it in one line. It emerged in the dark age. Okay, so that suits the context. And then key tenets, we can simply write as a diagram, so it won't consume much space, and you will be expressing the basic idea behind the concept. And then coming to direct demand, basic assumptions, I'm listing them and examining their validity. How will I examine? What are the things that are supporting them, and what are the things that are criticizing or going against them? And I'm bringing that unique, or that point which makes my answer look better. Analytical perspective, I'm taking a balanced view. What is the balanced view? Yes, some aspects they are not valid today, but some aspects they are valid, and that's why they are carried forward by neo-evolutionism. So I can link the, like I discussed in my first day's classical evolution question, we should link that current theories to future or other theories. So we can link here to neo-evolutionism. And what is the conclusion? Recognize merit of the school, and we can link it to postmodernism as well. Okay, and what is the conclusion? Recognizing the merit of the school, like I discussed in my first day's classical evolution questions. Okay, so that's what should be the approach. Can you spot the difference, right? I hope you are able to spot the difference between the approach that will suffocate you and the approach that will give you a free hand to write those 3 or 4 pages or 2 pages comfortably without getting stuck about you not remembering 1 or 2 points. Okay, it's okay completely if you're not missing or not remembering 1 or 2 points, since you have other points which will cover for it. This will cover for that part, and this will cover for anything that you miss out. In this way your answer will be very holistic, and you will be showing your depth, understanding, and completeness. Okay, so that's up for your day 2 discussion, guys. So we'll take the day 3 answers discussions now. So the first question is role of primatology in anthropological studies. Okay, so let's not let me shrink it a bit. Let's not beat around the bush and directly come to the point, because your time is precious and my time as well. Okay, so general approach would be what? Define what is primatology, and then list out the points about role in anthropological studies. Okay, and then we can simply conclude. So this is the basic approach which will come to us instinctively. So this is there, and what we can improve is trying to bring up with new dimensions which are relevant. Okay, I'm doing the same thing, definition, but I'm integrating the Franz Boas, because what? Primatology is part of what? The biological and physical anthropology, right? So it is part of subfield, one of the major subfield as said by Franz Boas, or simply quoting Franz Boas in the brackets. And the scope of what? Primatology. I'm simply listing out what primatology studies in this aspect, and role of primatology in anthropological studies. Here I'm linking. See, like I said, always use the syllabus as the framework to generate points. I'm linking the primatology with these 4 aspects. How primatology helps in understanding biological anthropology. What is biological anthropology? Growth, development, right? And genetical changes, yes, evolution, etc. So primatology helps us, right? And in how it helps us in understanding human social behavior, social institutions, the Jane Goodall studies, you remember, and how it helps us in understanding linguistic anthropology, because the primates also have their own way of communication and primitive. We cannot call this a symbolism or language like humans, but they have some type of primitive communications. We can link it there to understand human language. And primatology also helps us understand archaeological anthropology. You have to link it. So in this particular question, I have another dimensions that is popping up, case studies. Okay, you make note of the dimensions in a separate page. By the end of the day, you will realize you will have those 30 dimensions which you can cherry pick for based on different type of question. So we have a new dimension because since now case study has never come, so we can use the case studies of Jane Goodall, how her understanding of primatology or how her studies in primatology helped us understand anthropology better. Don't you think it suits the context? Role of primatology in anthropological studies, right? The case study is very perfect, and you can use Jane Goodall and Leakey because Leakey was a pioneer in primatological studies. And the significance, know what it means to be human, right? What is the significance behind we studying monkeys and apes? Because we want to know ourselves better. So that is what the crux I'm trying to pick out. And like I said, whenever it is about a discipline, because here it is a primatology, it is a subfield, so we can always go and search for the recent development in that field. So what is the recent development associated with? The scholars are discussing about there is a new wave or new current which is talking to look anthropology beyond primates and look anthropology not just in the context of primates and humans. So the multi-species anthropology, we can simply use it here as a recent development in this domain, okay, not as a direct point. So that simply gives the perspective that you have worked and there is effort from your end, so that will be rewarded here. And you can conclude it by saying that primates and humans are not separate entities, they are continuum where the qualities only differ in degree, not in whether they are there or not, okay. So this is the general conclusion you can always use whenever there is a question about primate and human, okay. So now coming to second question, primate locomotion and adaptation. So the general approach would be what is locomotion, define it. And then types, there are different types of locomotion, right? Knuckle walking, vertical clinging, leaping, etc. And then conclusion. And see, this is very straight, and if at all we forget something in these things, we will be choked, we will not have enough points to write, and we might lose some extra 30 seconds in thinking and recalling things. So what I can do, I can try to add and try to write things in structured manner where I'll get things instinctively, okay. So introduction, same part, because there won't be any change. Body, I'm again using the same structure but in a better structure, same headers within a better structure. See, in every locomotion we can write these 4-5 points. How is the locomotion, right? How you need to describe what is walking, what is clinging, what is leaping. And then diagram, we can show a representative diagram, and then we can give an example which kind of primate or humans have that kind of locomotion. Sorry, humans only have bipedalism. And biological adaptive traits, which traits help them to adapt to that kind of traits, right? Because to leap you need to have that jaw claws which should be able to grasp things after leaping, and to swing you need to have that stretchable rubber like hands. So these are the biological adaptive traits, and every locomotion is adapted to some ecology. So ecological niche you can write, right? There is a quadrupedalism, there is a arboreal quadrupedalism, so that is an ecological niche, right? So you can write this in these 5 structured points, and then again I'm adding an extra head which will make my efforts, which will make it easy for me to give completeness to answer if even if I forget some parts in these subheads, okay. So evolutionary studies, etc., and we can relate it to evolutionary studies, right? Because locomotion helps us to understand how we human from 4-legged animal we started to walk on 2 legs. So that is what it will help us understand. And conclusion, it will help us understand the same thing I have, I think, summed up here. So we have what 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 broad 7 or 8 dimensions under which at least we have 3 to 4 points in each dimension. So you can easily get 24 points. So for 10 markers it is more than enough, I believe. So bring out the comparative anatomical features of man and ape. So this question is highly anticipated for this year as well, 2026. So prepare it in a solid fashion. Discuss their evolutionary significance. So the general approach, what would be the general approach? We will introduce based on the context, what is the relation between man and apes? Yes, What is the relation between man and apes? Well, it is phylogenetic relationship. We belong to same order primate. Okay, and then we'll try to write the comparison outrightly. We'll list out the traits and we'll either write in tables or we can write it in a point by point manner, under point by point manner under each trait. Okay, and then we'll conclude. But like I said, we need to create that extra dimension that will make our answer look more holistic and comparatively better. So I try to use the same thing. I'm introducing in a similar manner. And comparison, yes, in comparison, I'm trying to make it more structured. Okay, I'm compartmentalizing the traits into two parts, cranial and postcranial. Yes, everyone knows it, but I've just tried to, remind you. Okay, in this, we can use these three as a distinctive structural elements. What is that trait? And you can show the illustrative diagram and then the evolutionary significance. Under these 3 points, if you are writing for each trait, our answer starts to look more structured. Okay, and then analytical view. Like I said, we need to bring that element which will showcase that we have understood things and I have that clarity over the concepts. So this is where I try to bring these dimensions. So why humans are unique? So don't you think by understanding this comparison, we'll understand why humans are unique, why humans have culture? And the genome study has shown that 98.98% there is similarity in human genetic gene and the apes genes, right? So that shows us that we only differ quantitatively, not qualitatively. So, and this will also help us reconstruct human evolution. So that's what I try to bring. And conclusion, like I said, whenever it is a question about primate and human, you should always conclude with primate and human form a continuum. Okay, based on the context, you can just tweak or elaborate it. So now coming to next question, a man can stand upright, whereas anthropoid apes cannot. So this question is directly coming from which aspect of the syllabus? It is about bipedalism and erect posture of humans. Okay, again, this includes an comparative aspect because is asking in comparison with anthropoid apes. And like the comparative part, this question also includes an element of comparison. So what will be the usual approach? Write an introduction. In this case, it will be contextual or linking to phylogeny. And body, reasons for upright posture in human beings. What are the biological changes that led to upright posture? And then reasons for lack of upright posture in apes. What are the features that they lack, right? The same things. The comparison parts, you are only writing in different heads to suit this context of the question and you are concluding it. But to make my answer holistic, like I said, I am trying to restructure it in a very appealing manner. So contextual, I'm linking human and ape phylogeny and I'm writing anatomical basis for upright posture. In this, I'll take a trait, I'll tell what it is, I'll take a diagram. If at all I have a plot, I'll use. Because in anatomical features, due to upright posture, we had two things. For upright postures, there is this plot that we use in mosaic anthropology, remember? Bipedalism and the growth of cranial capacity. That plot I can use it here. So that is what I've tried to illustrate. And reasons for lack of upright posture in apes. So same thing for everything, feature and diagram and evolutionary significance. So this is that dimension. Why we are studying this part. So evolution significance, what? Biological, cultural evolution, we need to link it. And tools, technology, social institutions, cognitive capacity. Don't you think that bipedalism has led to evolution? Don't you think that this change in human physiology has led to institution of marriage? This change has led to freeing of our hands. This change has led to stone tool and the modern technology that we have evolved. And this freeing and this evolution of us standing upright has led to cognitive capacity. Don't you think that has led to a chain of reactions and has brought humanity to this far? So I'm linking that one evolutionary change to the position that we have. That is the breadth I'm trying to show. See how I try to conclude. I'm highlighting the significance as that bipedalism and erect posture as the key for human culture and civilization. So this is not just a conclusion. This conclusion shows the crux. This conclusion expresses and this conclusion demonstrates that I have understood the things in clarity. So that is the value of such kind of conclusions. Okay, all right, guys. Let's move to next question. So critically examine the historical particularism approach of Franz Boas to the study of culture. So like we discussed the template for theories, same we will try to adopt here. So like I discussed, the general approach would be define what is historical particularism. Then in the body, we'll explain the concepts, and then we'll discuss contributions of Franz Boas, and we'll discuss the criticisms about their work, and then we'll conclude. But like I said, bring that strategic element. Background, yes, it came at a time when the classical evolution was suffering with lot of criticism, like armchair anthropologists, secondary sources of data, and deductionists. Okay, they were making theory out of thin air. So that is when Franz Boas came and said that we should not make a theory out of thin air. We should try and collect data first and then sit and analyze. So that's when the primitive, I mean, the nascent stages of participative observation and cultural relativism came up in anthropology discipline. And then same thing, we are discussing key tenets, contributions, criticism, and I am bringing this extra element, contemporary relevance. Okay, don't you think this cultural relativism, this contribution have contemporary relevance? Don't you think cultural relativism has contemporary relevance? Where we can use cultural relativism? Those are the contemporary relevance. We can use that in inclusive development. We can use that in solving the reasonism. We can use that in solving debate about UCC, right? So you can write any 2-3 points based on this. And conclusion, like I said, bring the depth and understanding in the conclusion. Historical particular was inflection point. Inflection point means turning point that led to transformation of anthropology from unscientific to scientific and objective footing. Like I said, in one of our questions about anthropology, systemic, objective, and holistic, that question of 20 marker in day one's discussion, what we saw, anthropology developed from science of discrimination to science of humanity. I'm trying to conclude in similar fashion to showcase how anthropology has developed and matured to a very scientific discipline. So historical particularism was a breakthrough school of thought that actually put through its inductive method, cultural relativism, and participative observation, made anthropology discipline a scientific one. So that's what I have tried to include in my conclusion. So that is how you need to bring the depth, the clarity and understanding in your conclusion. So I hope guys, this has given you some fair idea about how to create dimensions and come up with strong conclusions and bringing the theoretical aspect to the contemporary relevance. These are the 3 things which will help you enrich your answers and look like you have actually studied anthropology and you actually care for the discipline. Because like I said, the evaluator will be looking at your answer copies with a very, very fatigued mind. So he should, because he himself or the evaluator herself will be a scholar. She will be, or he might have read a lot of books. He knows the anthropology well, and if we are presenting something new, something to his curiosity, he will be impressed. Okay, during those mundane 8 hours where he, 6 or 8 hours that they will be evaluating, don't you think that they will get bored if we are presenting the same food? Will you be able to eat the same food for 6 months on trot? Right, we'll get bored, right? Same thing, our answer is what we present to the evaluator, but that should be served with love for the discipline and a hint of clarity, so that will fetch you more marks. So that's it for today's discussion, guys. Let's meet for the discussion for day 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6 in the next meetup. All the best. Do well. Thank you.